Everybody, please take your seats. We're about to start. Everyone, please take your seats. All right, it's happening. Everyone, I'm really appreciative that so many good people, so many old friends, so many people who knew and loved Bill Lynch are here today for this very special moment. And to open up our proceedings and offering the invocation, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, let me say that as we begin this ceremony, clearly there's no one more deserving of an educational institution in our community named after him than Bill Lynch. And by this institution being named after him, children unborn will remember one of the greatest political strategists, leaders, and civil rights and labor activists of all time, Bill Lynch. Bill Lynch literally changed this city. And I want to honor the school's chancellor, who is doing a great job, and others, and certainly our mayor, for making sure that this happened, and the local school board, because Bill Lynch is more deserving. Many names we need to take down. This name we need to hold up. And as well trained by her father, she ran up and shook my hand and reminded me she's running for city council. She's Bill's daughter. She did all that in 1 second. She was well trained. Let us pray. Dear God, as we gather this hour, we thank you for giving us a Bill Lynch. When this city faced some of its worst days, he was a light in a dark tunnel. He was one that gave us calm in the midst of tumultuous hours. He had wisdom when we had lost our balance, and he guided us into new days of empowerment and inclusion. And now, as we name this building after him, may the students that come through here learn of the legend of Bill Lynch, learn the sagacity, learn the persistence, learn the balance, learn the forward thinking and the big picture that he affected in life. May he do that in legacy. And we will be careful to give your name the praise. Thank God. Amen.
That's right. Thank you so much, Rev. And now we have the joy of hearing from the principal of this school. This school community has welcomed the addition of Bill Lynch's name, and I do want to note, so people aren't confused, the Adam Clayton Powell School is another part of this complex, but Bill Lynch's name will now be felt all over the community, be part of history, be something we all honor for time immemorial, and it's because this school community embraced it. My pleasure to introduce Principal Riley.
Thank you. All right, so I get to follow Reverend Sharpton and the mayor, so it's a little different than a PA meeting, but oh, wow, what can I say? I just want to welcome everybody. It's a beautiful day. It's a special day to see all the city leadership here, all of our community, our chancellor from the Department of Education. It's a real honor to have you all here. But I'm going to keep this short and I'm going to keep this focused because it's an important message. When this first came to me and we discussed it, I was able to have a phone conversation with Bill Jr. I was able to do some research on his dad. And I could just hear and see in talking to him the passion, the energy, and everything that he had in about community, this city and this community. And today's a great day. William Lynch's name will live on the side of this building forever. But what I said to Bill Jr. back there, and I mean it, this is not about one day. This is about a relationship, a partnership, and celebrating a school community that believes in diversity and robust and everything for students first. So again, I thank you all so much. I welcome the Lynch family to our school community, and from now on, PS 368 will be the William Bill Lynch School. So thank you, everybody.
There's something very Bill Lynch about the fact that there was a thorough grassroots democratic process that led to the naming of this school. Now, Bill Lynch would have had us all organized to canvass, to knock on the door of every member of the school leadership team. We all carry that spirit with us. And I want to speak about that for a few moments before we do the unveiling. I think about Bill pretty much every day, and I suspect there's a lot of you who could say the same. I think about Bill because he taught us all so much. And it's impossible when you have a mentor, a teacher, a leader like that, it's impossible to ever forget because it becomes a part of you. You do things even without realizing it. I certainly every day, I'm simply repeating things Bill taught me or applying lessons that I learned from him day after day after day. And I say day after day because Bill did have the ability to repeat his favorite sayings. If it was important to mobilize the citizens of our city, an important cause, he would say, "I need bodies." We've all heard that many times. We all were called to arms. If you presented him with what you thought was a very cogent analysis of why something could work a certain way, but he believed it to be unrealistic, he would look at you and say, "You're being logical." If you would make an argument for a great idea and he thought you were on the right track and then you kept arguing the point, he would say, "My daddy always said, when you already have the keys to the car, stop talking." There were many, many, many examples like that. But most important was the spirit. I think for all of us who served as soldiers in Bill Lynch's army, we just believed in him. We believed anything could happen. We believed all things were possible because we believed in our leader. And I always appreciate over the years, Mayor David Dinkins, may he rest in peace, he went out of his way. Whenever he talked about Bill Lynch, he gave all the credit. He really did. And I think there's a lot of people, this bears remembrance. We're here to talk about Bill, but let's take a moment to appreciate a lot of leaders struggled to remember the people who actually got him there, or the people who made it possible. David Dinkins would honor and acknowledge Bill Lynch without any hesitation or without any specific reason. He would just bring it up proactively because he knew and he felt it. But what we all felt, the day-to-day people who served under Bill Lynch, we just had a faith that he always knew the way. And sometimes with Bill, it took a lot to figure out where he was going. Bill was a brilliant, brilliant human being, and he saw things that the rest of us couldn't see. Sometimes it took a while to understand what he was telling us. But I always remember that sense that he had traveled the path before, learned the lessons, that he had such pure inspiration. Bill wanted a different world and believed it could happen. And he made us all believe. And Bill had the ability to show us when we thought all was lost that no, it wasn't, because we could go to the people. I can't tell you how many times the solution was go out to the people, talk to the people, organize the people, believe in the people. In 1989, I remember very vividly, due to my dear friend Herbert Bloch, I had the opportunity to get interviewed by Bill for the single lowest paying job on the Dinkins 89 campaign. Some of you I see in the crowd had the highfalutin jobs and the well-paid jobs. I was offered the opportunity to be volunteer coordinator, which was just one step above volunteer. and as some of you remember, when you had the opportunity to meet with Bill or be interviewed by Bill back in those days, you waited in a long line until a late hour at night, in this case at the now famous campaign headquarters on West 43rd Street. And it bears remembering that our building where our campaign headquarters was on West 43rd Street in 1989 was co-inhabited by other organizations with less savory goals. Just think about Times Square in 1989. Not every tenant in the building was seeking social change. Okay, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. We had some very interesting encounters in the lobby and the elevator. But you'd wait in line to see Bill. And we felt lucky to be in the line just to see him. And I got my chance to be interviewed, and I walked in, I sat down, he looks at me, the 100th meeting of the day, and he gives me the best interview question I ever experienced in my life. He says, "What do you know about New York City politics?" And I was like, well, where do you go with that? That's about as open-ended as anything I've heard in my life. But that was Bill. He was looking for the big picture. He was looking for who really felt the cause, the movement. And I'll say to you that when you get exposed to someone that great, it makes you greater. For all of us, it just made us greater. I always felt a mix about the phrase rumpled genius. He was rumpled, let's be honest. There was some rumpling going on. Bill was not particularly concerned what was on his shirt in the course of the day, how it looked, whether it was pressed, because it was all up here. But the genius part was 100% accurate. Pure genius. And amongst the most powerful parts of his genius was the way he could create in people a sense of what they could do that they didn't know they could do before. He called all of us to greatness. And every time we get back together, a lot of people here I remember from over the years, and I want to just take a moment to thank everyone, not just for being here, but we wouldn't be able to honor Bill Lynch as our former deputy mayor, and by extension, David Dinkins as our mayor, if every one of you who was part of that movement hadn't been there from day one fighting that fight. So thank you. I want to say two more things. The first is, it bears remembering how unlikely our mission was. I remember in the spring of 1989, the conventional wisdom was that David Dinkins would not be able to beat Ed Koch, let alone beat Rudy Giuliani later on. And I remember how dismissed David Dinkins often was, and I remember how Bill Lynch just saw right through that. Bill saw New York City as it really was, when often the political class, the media saw a different New York City that wasn't today's, at that point, today's New York City. Bill Lynch understood what we were. And he understood the power of people to make a change. And so he saw what David Dinkins could create when so much of the conventional wisdom missed it. And he gave you that spirit. He saw it and he communicated it to all of us, and we could feel it too. So if it weren't for someone who could see the future, see through the noise, distill the truth, if it weren't for someone like that, we wouldn't ever have all gotten together and been able to change the city in the ways we did. And one thing that David Dinkins and Bill Lynch both honored was all of you, and I know it because I've heard this in conversations so many times with both of them over the years. They understood one of their core missions was to develop a generation of leaders and activists. And so many people went on to elected office or to change agent movements or media or whatever it may be. But Bill understood, even at that early moment in the story, that he was creating generations and generations of leaders ahead. And that takes a vision that few of us are blessed with. The last thing I want to say before we unveil, and then we're going to hear from some other colleagues here who have a lot to say. Although I do want to say, do we want to hold the unveiling for the end? Is that more dramatic? Yes. Okay, we're holding the unveiling for the end. Stacy, your call. Billy, your call. Okay. Cancel the unveiling till the end. Executive decision. Okay. But the last thing I want to say is what happened today. So we're all preparing to celebrate Juneteenth. And Bill Lynch taught us, in my view, this was something that came through all the time, take our beliefs and not just feel good about the words we say or the meetings we have or the rallies we have, but make it something that reaches real people's lives. Bill was never satisfied with the superficiality. So as we prepare for Juneteenth today, in our city, we announced the Juneteenth Economic Justice Plan. We are going to invest in thousands of four-year scholarships for African-American CUNY students. We're going to invest in a recovery corps for young people at New York City's only historically black college, Medgar Evers in Brooklyn. And this is the one that really grabs me. We have seen over the years the beginnings of an effort to give every young person a savings account to prepare them for the day where if they chose to go to college, they would be ready. Some people call those baby bonds. Today we announced, and very much with Bill Lynch's spirit watching over us, that starting in September, every kindergartner in New York City from this year and for every year on will have a savings account started for them by the City of New York, baby bonds for every New York City child, so they can move forward. And that is economic justice, and that is how we make real change. So everyone, for a lot of us, and I can say this very personally, I couldn't stand here with you today if it weren't for Bill Lynch. I think a lot of us can say our own version of that. But I have the honor of being your mayor. I simply wouldn't be your mayor if I had not met one day a man named Bill Lynch. And my life changed, and your lives changed, and our lives changed. He made possible everything we have done since. With that, I will now introduce someone who I always give David Dinkins and Bill Lynch credit for this. You know with politicians, people get a little cynical, and they're sort of like, what have you done for me lately? So with David Dinkins and Bill Lynch, I can always say, well, in addition to giving me a job, they allowed me to meet my wife and have my family. But other than that, what have you done for me lately? So it is my pleasure in that vein to bring forward the light of my life and someone who carries on Bill's lessons in such powerful work she does, and the person who's done more to destigmatize the challenge of mental health in the city than anyone in the history of New York City, our First Lady, Shirley McCray. You want a box? Okay. I'm going to make the First Lady taller.
That's much better. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to see all of you. It's such a wonderful day, such a special day, and it's like a mini reunion. It just makes me feel even warmer all over than I already feel. Again, it's a special day for the Lynch family, Reverend Sharpton, Bill, and me, for all of us who were lucky enough to serve alongside Bill Lynch and get to know him. And it's a really special day for this entire community. And if people are judged by the company they keep, well then, check out this fine assemblage of people. That says it all. It's true, back in the days of the Dinkins administration, there was another Bill who caught my eye. But I admired Bill Lynch from the very first moment I heard him speak. He was grounded. He didn't beat around the bush. And it wasn't only his political genius. For me, it was about how he treated people, especially the young people in the administration. He supported them. He included them. He brought them into the room when he didn't have to. And the result was that all across the administration, he fostered this love and passion for public service and young people that has played out for decades, as you can see. And it's so fitting that we come here today to name a public school in his honor, because his life, his work, will inspire new generations of young people, the unborn, as Reverend Sharpton said, who will all ask about his story, learn about his story, about how he fought to make this city more fair. And I bet when they hear about Bill, many of them will pick up the torch and continue the fight as well. When the mayor and I had our own children, I remember Bill Lynch telling us how proud he was of Stacy and Bill, who we used to talk about all the time. And he gave us the most accurate parenting advice anyone ever shared with us. And it was just 2 words. It's like Bill Lynch, right? Get right to the point. Those 2 words were, don't blink. As in, they will grow up before you know it. He was right about that. He was right about that as he was about so many other things. And so today I will leave you by offering that same advice to anyone who loves a child and every parent who will send their child, their young people to this school to grow and learn and carry on Bill's legacy. Don't blink. Cherish every second. And now it's my honor to introduce a great leader who helped make today possible. I spent the morning with her, and I can tell you, she is a champion for our young people. I don't think I've ever met anybody quite like her. She brings fairness and opportunity to all of our schools, making sure every child in our city has the support they need to succeed. Our school's chancellor, Misha Porter.
Thank you. Where are we doing dinner?
Soon. You
Yes.
want the box?
No.
No, you
I
don't
got
want the box?
shoes today.
Okay, all right.
I should have brought my husband so he could have moved the box for me. So first, I want to make sure I acknowledge some important people. Our mayor, Bill de Blasio, for recognizing the importance of this day. Our First Lady, Charlene McCray, for being such a champion for mental health across this city and bringing it to life in our schools. The Lynch family, Mary, Bill Jr., Stacy, and Bill Lynch III. Charles Riley, I want to thank you, the principal of this school, the William Lynch School, for recognizing the importance of this moment. And before I finish, this moment is not just about the naming of a building. It's about teaching the legacy of New York City and the history of New York City. And Bill Lynch is such an important part of that. Our young people will be able to walk past these doors every day and walk in this building and learn about a man who changed New York City. I'll tell you, I'm excited to be here. I did not have the honor or privilege of knowing your father, but David Dinkins is the first mayor that I ever voted for. And so I feel connected in that way. And I want to just also acknowledge the PA members who made this possible, because as we head into Juneteenth, acknowledging true representative history, having a history and names on our buildings, like the Reverend said, that we can celebrate is so critically important, and that represent our children and look like them. And so Erin Ratner, our co-president, Maritza Castano, our co-president, Clara Nakowski, our vice president, Sophie Winborn, vice president, Christopher Minnick, treasurer, Stephanie Ashores, our secretary, Megan Coriat, our secretary, our executive superintendent for Manhattan, Marisol Rosales, our superintendent, Manny Ramirez, and of course, so many dignitaries, Reverend Al Sharpton, Hazel Dukes, who's not with us, but her spirit is always in the air, our Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer, as she reminds me every time, in the borough of Manhattan, Assembly Member Taylor, Councilmember Jackson. There's so many important, I'm sorry, Senator Jackson, I'm so sorry, but thank you for bringing 100% fair student funding to every New York City public school, which is most important. It's an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for me to be here today, like I said, as we do the most important thing, and not just name a building, but ensure that our students learn true representative history of New York City, the true heroes of New York City. Bill Lynch dedicated his life to service in New York City. He loved this community. He served as a mentor to so many of our elected officials and dignitaries here today. And today, young people will be able to carry his name off into history. He believed that fostering young people, encouraging them, and becoming active in their communities in this moment when that is so important was not only rewarding, but the responsibility. It's the responsibility of us all. I know he would be so incredibly proud that the spirit of that mentorship and the value placed on civic responsibility lives here today, and it lives on his name. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our mayor, who saw the importance of this day, Bill de Blasio.
Come here, 1 second. Let's stay here 1 second. I just want to say our chancellor said she didn't have the opportunity to know Bill Lynch, but I can tell you something. I really believe this in my heart. Bill Lynch would have been so happy to see Misha Ross Porter as our chancellor. And I can say this in the warmest spirit, Misha. Your ability to take a powerful mission for justice and turn it into action, that's something that reminds me of the great man we're naming this place after today. But also I can tell you, by what you've achieved, is exactly what Bill wanted to see, a society where actually everyone's talents got honored and recognized. And so Bill is smiling down for a lot of reasons today, including that we are standing here in the presence of the first African-American woman to lead the New York City public schools. Congratulations. Now, I want to bring up a fine representative of the Lynch family. Stacy and Billy both have, in so many ways, each their own approach, their own spirit, their own insight, carried on this tradition beautifully. And every good tradition needs to be built and embellished by the next generation in its own way. Bill Lynch didn't run for the kind of public office that Stacy is running for now. I think Bill is smiling down today also because he taught so many of us to take the chance and run for office. And now his daughter is doing that very thing. That's exactly, I think, what would bring a giant smile to his face. And Billy has been the man behind the scenes of so many great campaigns. So it takes both pieces of the equation, as David Dinkins and Bill Lynch taught us. And here we see exemplified in the Lynch family. Well, I just have to say, it's been a joy knowing them over the years. Bill, Shirlane's right, he would talk about both of you all the time with joy and with respect and honor for what you have become. And now, as Stacy goes on her own journey, it's moving to me. She served in my administration, she served well, she made an impact for the people of Harlem and for the whole city because she had brains and heart and the ability to get things done, and she actually understood how things worked. And I saw it time and time again when we needed to make something happen, we turned to Stacy Lynch. She was the can-do person. So the voters will make their own choices. I can only say they'd be really lucky to have her. My pleasure. My pleasure to introduce to you Stacy Lynch.
Good afternoon, everyone. Say it louder. This is a celebration. Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Lynch. I'm the daughter of Bill Lynch, and this is my brother, William Lynch III.
Older brother.
I want to thank the mayor, the first lady, and the chancellor, and Principal Riley, and everyone for pulling this together today. This is indeed a special moment for us, for our family, and for this community. I also want to acknowledge my brother. Mayor Dinkins had his Bill Lynch, and my brother is indeed my Bill Lynch. I also have to acknowledge my aunt and uncle, Luis and Lynn Riggio. They have never left our side since 2013, and we love you dearly. So I want to briefly talk about my dad, who was a special, special individual. In 2011, I went out partying all night. I was with my friends. I know, Chancellor. I know. I was young back then. And I came home around 5 a.m. in the morning, and my daddy was up waiting for me. And we started to have this conversation about life and just things that happen, I guess, along your journey in life. And for people that knew my dad, he had a mark on his hand. And I always assumed it was a birthmark, but it was actually a burn mark. And my dad started to tell me the story about how he was kidnapped when he was in Mattituck, Long Island. He used to organize farm laborers, and the farmers in Mattituck, Long Island kidnapped my father, took them to this, I guess, huge barn, tied him up, and burned his hand with a cigarette lighter. And he told me, he said, God, if I get out of this situation, I promise I will make my mom and dad proud, and I'll continue to organize the community for equal rights, for equality and equity across the city and across the world. I was shocked by this story, but it also showed what a special man he was. And so, you know, today, it's incredible that we are naming this school after my dad, and I know he would love to be here today. And we so appreciate the renaming of the school after my father, William Lynch. But he was also a man of value and substance. And so today is just the beginning, Principal Riley. You have a partner in the Lynch family and the extended Lynch family here. That's what my father would say, right? He would put people to work, literally. So I look forward to working with you and the school community as we create programs and identify resources that will help these children here in this district and all over the city thrive. I thank everyone today for honoring my father, my mother. I'm sure she is so happy about this day and sends her acknowledgments. And thank you so very much. God bless.
Thank you so much, Stacy. We've had lots of dignitaries here, and I know one of our dignitaries has to leave, and he's had a very big day with the National Urban League headquarters being groundbroken today in New York City. Mark Morial, thank you for joining us today, brother, and congratulations. This is an amazing day for this city and this country. Thank you. Stacy, please let Mary know we all love her. And we are thinking of her, and she is part of all of our families. None of it happens without her, too. So God bless her. And one thing that Stacy said, and I want to emphasize to the principal and the whole school community, there's a lot of people, when you say the Bill Lynch School needs something, there's a lot of people going to jump when they hear those words. When you say you want someone to come speak here, or you need some help for something you're trying to get done, or for a child coming out of this school, you've got a couple of magical words now attached to your name. For a lot of us, that's all we have to hear, because Bill Lynch taught us. This is one of those eloquent, inspiring things he would say to us, each of us as staffers. Here's your job. I want to see how many of you remember this. ADT, ADT. Remember this one? Your job is any damn thing, any damn time. So the great classic. It built character. It built character. But principal, we're going to answer the call when you call. I want you to know that. Now, Bill Lynch inspired, I guess you won't forget. Okay, it's good to know. It's good to know. You're making a note. Okay, make a note of it. Bill Lynch inspired so many young people to do great things. One of them, dear, dear friend of mine, we got into all sorts of political and other types of mischief over the years, and we were joined at the hip through those years and beyond. I am just a lowly mayor, but I got to produce to you now an ambassador, okay? He reached a very lofty height, and Bill loved him, and he loved Bill. Ambassador Patrick Gaspard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to lie, I'm still a little taken aback every time I hear people scurrying around my friend Bill and calling him sir and Mr. It's astonishing. Somehow we became the adults at the end of the day. You know, Mr. Mayor, I have to say that you put on quite a performance here when you were trying to put this step ladder in front of the podium as if you had to raise your wife up to us. You've been riding on her shoulders for years now, so my first lady, our Manhattan Borough President, Brother Morial, so many others who are here. It's just an extraordinary honor. Of course, our school's chancellor. It's an extraordinary honor to join you and to join my brother and sister from another mother, Bill Lynch Jr. and Stacy Lynch. You know, we all grew up with one another. We're all in the same romper room in City Hall with each other. And I know that somewhere the big man is looking down with a tremendous amount of pride in what the both of you have been able to accomplish in your lives and what you're giving back to the community. So thank you so much. You know, it's appropriate that a school should be named after Bill Lynch. Bill was a teacher. Bill was an educator. This was a man who never took himself seriously, but took all of our young folks seriously as he mentored all of us. There are some persistent lessons that come from Bill that some of us are still trying to transmit to others. Bill was always embarrassed when people would stick that moniker of Rumple Genius on him. But he was a special kind of genius because he understood that at the end of the day, there are two types of genius that exist in the world. There's the genius of courage, and there's the genius of persistence. And Bill had all of those things in spades. He was fond of sometimes in the most impossible moments, turning to some of us and saying very simply, I dared. Right? And his dare was a challenge to all of us to step forward and step in and inhabit the moment and take up the spirit of the DNA that's been passed through us. He would just say simply, I dared. And there were other times he'd look to all of us, Sally, and he'd say very plainly when we thought that there was a mountain that was far too high for any of us to climb, he'd say simply, make it happen. And you would take that as your exhortation to go and climb that mountain. So he had that kind of insistence on a kind of overwhelming courage, and he had the persistence to persevere and to push on through. I wish that we were having this conversation today, this celebration of joy with the young people in this school, because they need to understand that names do matter at the end of the day, but they need to know that Bill Lynch was just a man. The name that's going to go on there on this building is of a very humble person who appreciated that humble and normal people can do extraordinary things, and that they themselves are called to do extraordinary things in their life's journey. Bill was really fond, we all know, of his jazz. He loved him some Charlie Parker. You couldn't go into his office without getting a big dose of both Charlie Parker and Frederick Douglass, whose images were always in Bill's offices, whether it was the borough president's office or in City Hall or in offices beyond that. Charlie Parker would always say to people who just were mystified about the magic of his genius, he'd say, you know what, if you didn't live it, it wouldn't come out of your horn. This community came out of Bill's horn every damn day. Even though he was somebody who walked with Nobel laureates like Nelson Mandela, advised and counseled one president after another, the thing that came from him, the thing that he sang forth every day, his soul's highest song was always steeped in these young people, in these streets, and in this sense of aspiration that I think joins and binds us all together. Bill also hung on to the tunes of Frederick Douglass, who told us, agitate, agitate, agitate. That was subject and verb for Mr. Lynch. And I just want to end by saying to my old colleagues from the borough president's office, from the mayor's office, from numerous campaigns that we all had the blessing of being with Bill in, you know, it's great to come together like this and to reminisce. But Bill would really be ashamed of us and embarrassed by us if all we did was use moments like this for reminiscence. that's not enough. We have to galvanize our memories. We have to galvanize reminiscence into collateral action, collective action on behalf of the young people who are going to be walking through these doors every single day. It is appropriate that we are having this renaming on the eve of a municipal election in New York. Even when Bill went overseas or was engaged in national elections, he never forgot that all politics is local. I remember in the last days before he passed away, he was still trying to convince some of us, Mr. Mayor, that we should be helping another candidate for office that year. Right at his hospital bell. It was really an extraordinary thing to see. And of course, for him, that wasn't about one candidate versus another. Of course, he had nothing but passionate love for Bill de Blasio, but it was about his understanding that this stuff matters, that politics is not a blood sport, that it is about the life sport, the lifeblood of folk here. So let's all remember that in these next days and in these next years, when all of us are going to lift up this school as a beacon for persistence, a beacon for courage to make some good change. Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to do three more things. We're going to have our elected official colleagues come up together and say a few words quickly. We're going to then present a plaque to the Lynch family, and then the moment you've all been waiting for, the unveiling, the dramatic conclusion. First, I want to welcome Borough President Gail Brewer, Senator Robert Jackson, Assemblymember Al Taylor, and Councilmember Mark Levine. Come up, everyone share a few words.
Thank you very much. I was an employee of Bill Lynch. We could say employee of the mayor, but it was really of Bill Lynch. I was head of the federal office in New York for 4 years. Mr. Mayor, I didn't need an interview. He just told me to show up. I just want to let you know. I will say, however, two major things. Not only was he all the genius that you described, but he did policy. He said to me, I want all the mayors of big cities in the city of New York to show up at Gracie Mansion for a week to talk about policy issues. We put together an amazing assemblage of what urban issues should look like, including what airports, infrastructure, all the things that, to the credit of Mayor de Blasio, he talks about today, because he knew that the big cities were not part of all the organizations in Washington, and the organizations in Washington didn't do shit. They just talked, and he wanted action. The second thing he did was to put together the convention, the Democratic Convention in the city of New York. And it was, many of us remember what a great event it was. The president came out of it, but that was Bill Lynch. And so for me, I would not have been in the city council. I wouldn't have been borough president without his leadership. And I do start crying looking at the pictures.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Mark Levine, city council member here in this neighborhood. I'm so jealous of all of you who got to spend decades of your life with Bill Lynch. I had the blessing of knowing him in his latter years, and it was certainly enough to appreciate what a giant of a human being he was. And I've been really honored to come to call Stacy and Bill friends who are some of the most decent, smartest, compassionate people I know. Thank you for your friendship to both of you. You know, Bill Lynch still looms very large in the city council. We talk about him all the time when we have some particularly difficult challenge we're trying to figure out. One of the stories we tell about him is some bill or another that he was trying to pass, which looked like it was headed for defeat. And then as the roll call was done, everyone was shocked, and it won by 10 votes. A reporter asked, "What kind of lobbying did you do, Mr. Lynch, to make that happen?" He said, "I didn't lobby, I educated." And he had the, that was Bill Lynch in a nutshell. He had the moral stature to do that, because unlike so many people in this business who they're just pure political animals and they don't really care about government, or they're people who are government wonks but are very naive about politics, he was driven to use government to make change, to impact the lives of people who have been marginalized, but also very much understood that you had to win political battles to do that. And that's inspiration that I've taken in my career. Very quickly, finally, I know this school very well, and this is one of the most special educational communities in New York City. This was founded by parents, some who are with you. It was founded as a program in another building, and it got school status. It is so child-centric. It is cutting edge. It is, the school population is what I think Bill Lynch might have called a gorgeous mosaic. It is such a beautiful, diverse population. And Principal Riley has been doing amazing work. So I hope you're noting all this, Chancellor Porter, because give them a high rating, please. So honored to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Jackson. Let me just say that I'm so fortunate to be here, considering our schedules during this campaign time. And let me tell you, it is crazy out there. But taking the time to come here and listen to all of the speakers to learn more about Bill that we did not know before, and understanding that he is part of the history of the progress that has been made in this city, that's extremely, extremely important. And as someone that has been in the struggle for decades as far as education, and I've always said, education is the key to uplift all people. It doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, you're Latino or Asian, whether you're rich or you're poor. Education is the key, and we must uplift all our children through teaching them about history, and especially their own history, black history or Latino history or Native American history, so that people know where they came from, and then we determine where we're going. So I wanted to say to the Lynch family, thank you for sharing your dad with all of us and making history here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Al Taylor. I am the assemblyman for this district, and I am so honored to stand here. There's a text in Scripture, and it says in Jeremiah, seek the peace of the city, because if the city prospers, so shall you. Bill understood that in his everyday living. Everything that he did, he understood that. I had the pleasure of meeting him just a couple of times, but the first time I met him, I slid in as an aide for then Assemblymember Herman Denny Farrell. And I was invited into this room, and the table was longer than this block. And the big woolies were at the table, and they were talking. I was like, I have no idea what they're doing. I'm writing. I was like, oh, how do you spell that? And I'm trying to keep up. And Bill, could you just hold it for a second? He was sitting there, and he kind of had his arm folded. And he said a couple of words, but the takeaway was say that in layman terms so we can all understand what you're talking about. And that's who I walked out of there understanding. I could understand him because wherever the circles he was in, he made sure on the block it was plain and simple. Say it. And then I just want to take one other thing. I want to ask you guys if you would come up, Bill and Stacy, if you would come up, we just want to present this to you. But also there is something in the book of James, and it says faith without works is dead. Don't talk about it, be about it. And that's what Bill Lynch was. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you so much. All of us, y'all do the part. Okay. Come on.
Yeah, let's get everyone together for this.
Okay.
Go in front, watch out. Watch out.
We didn't have an insurance policy.
Okay. Pass that back for a moment. And some of the leaders of the school community join us, please. Principal, come on up. Bring any of your other leadership, because this is about you. Chancellor, come on up. All right, Stacy, come on over. Bill, come on over. You come right over here. I'm going to use the microphone on the other side of the podium. This is very controversial. Okay. I'm breaking all the rules, people. Okay, good. This plaque, I'm going to read it as I hand it to you. In recognition of his service to the borough of Manhattan and the city of New York and his tireless efforts to foster a government that raises up all New Yorkers, the administrative and parent leadership of PS 368 Hamilton Heights School has voted to honor Bill Lynch and change its name to the William Bill Lynch School. Now, family and dignitaries, come join us by the unveiling.
Am I a dignitary?
Of course. Thank you.